Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night, whatever time of day you are watching this Big Pro Wrestling podcast. Or not podcast, YouTube channel. We're still trying to figure it out, folks. We'll be real. I am the storyteller, Alex Braddock, and joining me as always.
I am Dylan Gilbert. I'm dropping the other gimmick because, new opportunities.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. After some long deliberation, we are finally meeting in person, talking. We do not have a backdrop, we do not have a setup, but we wanted to give you all some content. But we did figure out that after some time, we both experienced some fan fatigue watching wrestling every day, having to do the recap. It is just a lot. So we thought, why not start off the new era, whatever we want to call it, with a Hot Take Hangout talking about fan fatigue.
Yes.
Dylan, how do you feel, bud?
Look, I always say, pro wrestling is one of my great loves in life. It's one of those things that, it just speaks to me in a way few things do.
Yeah.
But between Raw, SmackDown every week, Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, NXT, TNA, and that's all just stuff easily accessible. And then you get into the independents and stuff like that, and it gets to be a lot. And I think that's part of the whole, us not doing recaps anymore is, it gets to be draining.
Yeah, very much so. I know you watch AEW Dynamite practically religiously.
Yeah,
and
every week.
If you listen to the recap, we are AEW marks. You had a good point earlier off the video that you said it is like watching a big indie. We're big indie guys, and watching it on live television every week entertains us. But then there's also the time gaps of watching a Monday Night Raw that has an hour worth of wrestling, but 3 hours worth of TV time.
Right.
It's rough. And having to do that every day and be in a spot in front of a TV every day on top of our normal shoot jobs, on top of me being a wrestler on the weekends, you working cameras for some shows, it can be a hassle. It can be some burnout. It can be fatigue. And it's just, it's not a great time to be force feeding something that we love.
Right.
I think that's a good point to make. We have force fed ourselves for the recap. We started loving the idea of doing the recap and having to turn right back around and go, all right, well, now we have to watch Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, AEW, Dynamite, Rampage, and Collision. And let's hope and pray that there's not a pay-per-view that weekend.
Right.
Because it'll be rough.
God forbid those pay-per-views coincide with, the shows we're working on.
Right.
Because then look, I don't get in the ring at all, but I can tell you at the end of these shows, after 3 hours of running around trying to make you guys look good, I'm worn out.
Yeah.
And then to have to go home, and then the next day is usually recovery day for all of us.
Right.
And then we have to find time to fit the pay-per-view in, and then not just fit the pay-per-view in, but now we're having to take notes. We're having to be on, and we're that's why I think the recap reaction stuff we're doing is kind of the sweet spot. We're hey, well, we're still fired up. Let's dive in.
Yeah.
And not have to go home and do an hour.
Right.
We
yeah.
can do
not
15, 20 in one of our living rooms.
Right.
And still be excited about what we just saw.
Absolutely.
Because look, these things are the best when you're excited.
Yeah.
You're supposed to enjoy wrestling. It's not supposed to be a ABC task.
Yeah. And we can also put some blame on the computer situation. I think being in person, we talked about it earlier in the video. We talked about it back in our previous talks video that being in person, me and you talking, if today has been any proof before recording, Dylan got here at 3:00 and it is now almost 8, and we planned on recording at 3:30. So
didn't happen.
Nope, did not happen, because we just love talking about wrestling, love talking about what's going on. Like you said, after long weeks of working shows, I'm not working as much as some other guys that I know, but shoot, I got home last night from a 225 show in Louisiana, woke up this morning, had to turn right back around and go do some obligations, come back, and then I could not imagine recording the recap today.
Oh man!
I have a rope burn from underneath my pit to the middle of my back, and I just couldn't imagine it. So, very much so. We are working out the kinks, but fan fatigue is a thing. Now, Dylan, I'll ask you this: what do you think some fixes to fan fatigue would be?
Honestly, to me, the fix that I have found is, at least for me personally, not feeling like you have to watch every single thing. I'm a big Major Pod guy, big Matt Cardona guy. One of the things he talks about, he said, I don't watch a single live wrestling show start to finish, but I know who all the champions are. I know the big gimmicks that are happening. Like, because of social media, you can keep up with a lot. You can do like I do and watch pay-per-views once a month. And the occasional, like, I'm flipping channels and something on Raw catches my eye, or I hear a match is good, I go back and watch it. You don't have to watch every second of every show to be like a good wrestling fan. Especially every second of every TV show.
Yeah.
There's a lot, and it gets to be like drinking out of a fire hose. If you like one of the big TV shows and like an indie or two, you've got more content than you could ever keep up with. And if you can, great.
Right.
I can't.
No, I agree with that. I mean, you're sitting there looking at the situation of, you had a very good analogy, drinking out of a fire hose, where some people just experience WWE or AEW,
Mm-hmm.
and then a lot of those people don't know about TNA, MLW, New Japan, all of that. Now, I'll put us a little cred. We're pretty good wrestling fans, so we keep up with the stuff. But that doesn't mean it is not tiring. It is not exhausting. I know, I'll just take an example of when fan fatigue started hitting me when we did the G1.
Yeah.
And we sat there for that mid G1 recap, and we watched pretty much every G1 match to the middle of the G1.
We did that, and that same day we did SummerSlam. So we get together at, I think it was somewhere around 9 a.m.
It was 9 or 10, yeah.
We watched somewhere in the ballpark of 20 to 25 G1 matches, which were awesome.
It was great.
But it is a lot. Like, there's a reason that you don't watch a single wrestling show that, like, I think that 1 or 2 years that Mania was like 7 or 8 hours. They're like, we're never doing this again.
We'll double it
at
up.
a certain point, like, your excitement level drops off a little bit, and I think that's why shows have intermission points.
Right.
That's why we have times to cool off. Like, you need a chance to, like, reset between big moments, big spots, whatever. But we come off of all that G1 and then watch all of SummerSlam.
Which, that was a decent sized SummerSlam that year.
It was a long SummerSlam. It was a good SummerSlam.
Yep.
But it's one of those things, like, it's a lot to take in just as a fan, and it's a lot to take in if you're trying to, like, actually give, like, commentary and notes. Right. And so, yeah, look, we're whining a lot. We love this. We love wrestling.
Yeah.
And I've said before, and I stand by it, we live in the best time to be a wrestling fan, because if you don't like what's happening on WWE, you've got AEW. If you don't like AEW, you have WWE. If you don't like either of them, MLW, there's New Japan, there's TNA. Every indie with any sort of following has probably got a YouTube show.
Yeah.
Shout out Pro Wrestling 225 Unleashed. Check it out.
Shameless plug.
We love them. But, I mean, you don't have to watch every single episode of Unleashed. You don't have to show up to every 225 fan to consider yourself a fan of 225.
Right.
You don't have to watch every second of every WWE product to consider yourself a fan of WWE. I mean, life is hard sometimes, and life gets busy sometimes.
Yes.
And this should be an escape and not a, like, have to check every single box.
Right. No, I completely agree. I mean, we've said from the get-go of this podcast, YouTube, whatever we make it, we have said this is going to be for fun.
Mm-hmm.
One, we don't care about the money we make off of it. Fun fact, we're not making any. Two, we have said we're not going to let this stress us out. And the moment we are sitting there and we are talking, we're like, man, we have had some episodes where we walk in and we go, all right, we have zero desire to do this. And then we'll pull out an hour and a half long podcast.
Yep.
And it was a good time because that's what we needed in our life. But there's a difference between being down on life and using wrestling as a pickup versus being down on wrestling and trying to use wrestling as a pickup.
Well, but it's funny you say that because like we both like last week we were kind of trying to figure out what we were gonna do.
Yeah.
And I was starting to have the like I think every wrestling fan somewhat has that thought of like I'm starting to fall out of love with this. And we had that like we're gonna put the video out like this is the change is coming. And then we took a week off, but in that week we hung out and pulled up YouTube and we watched some New Japan and some PWG and random West Coast Pro Chris Hero matches, and like I find myself getting so excited, and I think it's just like I'm finding out more and more that like as much as some of my favorite wrestlers are in WWE, I don't like. I guess corporate wrestling it will be the term. I hate using that, but I'm not like I love the entertainment side of wrestling, but I love the sports side.
Right.
And if you give me the two blended, I want it to be more sport with entertainment. And a lot of independents do that.
Right.
And like, give me story, give me gimmick, but I don't need 10 promo segments of like the people backstage like schlepping energy drinks at me.
Right.
If you're talking backstage, you're setting up what's about to happen. You're making me care about what's about to happen. And we're not just here because Sonic told us to.
Yes.
Except the New Day. That was awesome.
Yes. Thank you, New Day, for making Sonic advertisements interesting. No, I completely agree with that, man. I think that night that we hung out, like you said, we watched New Japan. That shifted into PWG.
Yep.
And going, I think we finished on one of Chris Hero's latest matches in West Coast.
It was Chris Hero, Timothy Thatcher, West Coast Pro. Very fun match.
It was a great match because we used to be big Chris Hero guys / Cassius Ono guys, and then we thought he just called it quits and disappeared off the map, and we went Google searching and found those matches.
And like we talked about, any independent with a following has a YouTube page, and those matches, much like 225 Unleashed, like they have full commentary, multiple camera angles. Like it's easier and easier for independent wrestling companies to keep up and to do something that is like maybe not totally on par with, but like similar enough to what you see on television.
Yeah, very much so.
And so I mean, like if you're burnt out on like, well, this company does too much filler, like go watch your local independent. There's filler at the shows for you to go grab a drink or whatever. Like, but that's called intermission.
Right.
That's not called the middle 20 minutes of hour 2.
Right.
You know?
I agree.
There's a lot of great wrestling out there.
Yeah. So I'll throw out the challenge. If you feel like you are experiencing fan fatigue, do this. Odds are, I feel like most of WWE's main roster nowadays, with some exceptions, as well as all of AEW, most of TNA, all these superstars have had a previous indie background.
Oh, yeah.
So my challenge to the Victory Roll viewers, whatever you call yourselves, find a superstar that you love to watch on TV or that you've loved to watch in the past and go find a match of theirs that you've never seen before on YouTube.
Oh, man.
Go on cagematch.net or com, I can't remember what it is, .net, and look them up and scroll through until you find a match that seems interesting to you. Maybe we'll take Kyle O'Reilly versus Roderick Strong at PWG, for example.
Yep.
You're a big Kyle O'Reilly guy. You find, hey, I know Roderick Strong's name. And you watch that match and you go, all right, cool. Now I'm going to send you my challenges to go down the rabbit hole. So, all right, I watched Kyle O'Reilly versus Roderick Strong. Now I'm going to go look up a Roderick Strong match.
Right.
Now I'm going to go look up a Chris Hero match. Now I'm going to look up a Timothy Thatcher match. Go down the rabbit hole until you find an indie guy that you've never heard of. Because odds are you're going to find an indie guy that you've never heard of, and you're going to find out that they're extremely talented.
Yeah.
So that is my challenge. Go down the rabbit hole.
We did something kind of the opposite. There's a guy that works with 225 named Steve Anthony, and like I've heard like this dude's good. He's every match I've seen him have is like, man, he has this very New Japan style.
Yep.
We get on Cage Match and we found a match of him with was it Tiger Mask?
I believe it was Tiger Mask 4.
Tiger Mask 4. And it was awesome. But like, and on that same card, you've got Kenny Omega facing Juice Robinson.
Yeah.
And just because like wrestling is what wrestling is, like that dude works in our indie. Like I will be running around in less than a month filming this guy in a cage match, and I've watched him wrestle Tiger Mask. Like if you see a guy at your local, there's a chance they've gone somewhere and done something. And so like you never know if the guy that you're watching today at like whatever high school gym is going to be the next Kevin Owens, is going to be the next Seth Rollins, is going to be the next John Moxley. Like all these guys were wrestling. You go find those matches back in the day. Somebody caught that guy before he was that guy. You get a chance to be that.
Super quick, I'll say if you can't find Seth Rollins, it's because he changed his name from Tyler Black to Seth Rollins. So go look up Tyler Black in Ring of Honor. He's got some really good stuff.
Kevin Steen and
Kevin
John
Steen
Moxley
was Kevin Owens. John Moxley was Dean Ambrose. Turned John Moxley again. Yes. No. They're Ring of Honor early 2000s, end of 2000s. It has a lot of old WWE guys or nowadays WWE guys.
Right.
Were old like built Ring of Honor. So yeah.
See, like it's the love is 100% still there.
Yes, very much so. Do not think for a second that we have fallen out of love.
And list Ring of Honor champions for the next 20 minutes. But
do you think you can?
I would say if we put some sort of challenge to this, I think I probably could.
Stay tuned. Maybe there's something like that coming up. Maybe we have plans, and Alex Braddock was just doing a shameless segue.
We love a shameless segue.
We love shameless segues. But this is all for the Hot Take Hangout. This is not our typical style. We will be doing some more in-person Hot Take Hangouts. We are still trying to figure out the script, if I may.
The book.
The book, yes, into how we are going to do this, that, and the other. But we do know our content, what we want to put out. We have figured out, because we actually haven't said this yet, we're going to put out more Hot Take Hangouts. We're going to put out more watch-alongs.
Yes.
We are going to put out trivia-esque challenges, like we just mentioned. Maybe it's we mention What Culture and Wrestle Talk all the time. Maybe it's like a survival series kind of thing where we just list off champions until one of us can't. We also have, you made a really good point, introducing X, I think is what we may call the series.
Yes,
where
the idea I had, I'll just go ahead and put it out there, because if I don't put it on video, I'm going to find a way not to do it. So my thought was 5 matches to get to know blank, right? So like I've already dropped Cardona's name. So like, okay, I'll give 2 Zack Ryder matches, give him going on this like current indie run, give 3 of those, and I think you can get like the full picture of a wrestler, because like I love that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so hopefully that's something we can get into, like and get wrestlers in front of people that you might like. Yeah, I know Penta's the guy from AEW. Like, but did you know he was the guy from all these other places first?
Yeah.
So
I think that's going to be a fun one. And the last kind of thing that we're still trying to tweak in with, if you are watching and you think this is interesting, go down in the comments and let us know it's interesting. We're thinking about doing deep dives.
Yes.
So I say hardcore, but bigger, that's our long form video, is where we go in, and it may just be once a month that we do these videos, because we are working on deep diving ourselves into these companies or these tournaments, these championships, that we just want to share the knowledge that we love with you guys. So content is coming. This is not, this may be the only video we put out this week, but content is coming. Content is being made. This guy is up my tail about recording more stuff, because we're not going to let it die.
We called out our good friends at Last Match Standing. I'm not going to die yet. It's not going to happen.
We have to get at least to episode 94.
Look, I called those guys out. I would love to do something with those guys. So
absolutely. As many crap promos as we're going to cut on them in the future, we definitely love them. We are putting that on video before we start cutting more crap promos.
Right.
But yes, so this has been the Hot Take Hangout. Do you have any takeaways? I think the challenge, solid takeaway.
I like it.
Go down the rabbit hole.
go down the rabbit hole, and again, conversely, find the level of watching that is good for you. Some people I know can just watch it 24/7.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I just get to a point, it's like, I'd rather watch something else so that when I come back, I'm fresh and I love it again.
Yeah.
Find your level of comfort with it. You don't have to watch 24/7. You can watch 24/7. This is a business you should love. This
Right.
should be a job that you don't get paid for.
Right.
You know, like, love this thing.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, I've been the storyteller, Alex Braddock. I'm not going to plug my socials because this isn't a podcast anymore, but he's been.
I've been Dylan Gilbert, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. And after some long, deliberate conversations, we have finally figured out somewhat what we're going to do. Clearly, we don't have a backdrop or anything like that. But we're finally meeting a person. Give it a second. I'll edit it. And welcome to edits. Jeez, man. After the videos, I'm not going to do that. I'll cut it before, whatever. Thanks for joining the Hot Take Hangout. I'll do a hardcore cut right there. Bam.